Today I'm here with my long-term colleague and friend, Michele Porterfield, to talk about something that has become really important to me over the last few months. And that is this notion of vulnerability and authenticity in the workforce. How is it that we can be vulnerable enough to share our strengths, our weaknesses, what we're thinking, to expose our ideas in a way that even if we get rejected, that it's okay, because we know that that kinds of intimacy and that courage to be authentic is often what helps groups, teams, individuals to work better together and to get much of the long-term success that we're looking for in organizations. So Michele, welcome, and tell me, what do you think about that whole idea?
It's really interesting, and it sort of relates back to the conference. I think you said you went to a couple of weeks ago where you saw Renee talk about this notion. And I think it's interesting because organizations seem to be these days so focused on results and productivity and the bottom line. And while that's really important, I sometimes feel like we've lost our way. And while there are boundaries, we have to sort of get back to center. And because the connectivity is really what I think relates to retention, commitment, loyalty, and the things that really do make a big difference. And we've sort of lost our way, it seems. And people also these days, in terms of how they work, people are working at home and remotely, and while that's necessary for certain reasons, it does sort of by its very nature diminish the sort of connectedness that people naturally have, which is different than it used to be.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way too. But I often wonder, why do people not want to be vulnerable, and why are they so afraid of the disapproval that might come with showing people themselves? A lot of these folks are very successful employees and their bosses, and they have a lot of support for themselves, but yet and still they feel that exposing themselves by being vulnerable, by telling people who they really are or what they really think, might somehow undermine their effectiveness, their reputation, etc. But I find that the opposite is true. I think when people are vulnerable with each other and they talk about things that are real, and they talk about feedback in a real way, and I know that corporate guidelines are important, but I don't think that our protocols and our guidelines should eliminate the real conversations and deal with the real fears that people have. For example, if you were sitting in a conversation where you were giving somebody feedback and you saw that they were really being blown away by it, rather than glide over those emotions, it's okay to lean in and say, I've had feedback like that before, or that feedback is, I can see that you're really disturbed or uncomfortable with that. Or somebody who's giving you an idea and you really don't like it, there is a tactful way to be genuine and authentic. I think that's the foundation of building really strong and trusting relationships, and a missed opportunity for folks who are not able to do that.
Yeah, no, it's funny, it brings to mind literally a conversation I had with somebody a couple of weeks ago where she was new to an organization and adjusting to a new boss and a new kind of setting altogether. And she was talking about some things she'd observed in the organization that she wasn't quite comfortable with or thought were presenting some unnecessary risks, and she really felt strongly about it. And she was trying to find her way in terms of, do I say that to the boss? What are the risks of that? And sort of trying to establish a new reputation for herself, and a good one, but also feeling like she wasn't sure if it was appropriate to take that risk. And I said to her, the truth is, I would reframe it, instead of being risk, it's really about your responsibility, because at your stage in your career, you've earned the right to speak your truth. And my hope for you is that the environment is conducive to really taking that in and really trusting that it came from a good place. So it's one of those things that she was sort of having some trepidation about, but I really encouraged her to sort of step out, because you have nothing to lose. And if you can't do that, what else is there really? And organizations will get to better places when people do that at all levels.
I agree. And author Brene Brown writes a lot about it, and has a really popular YouTube video where she talks about vulnerability. And one of the things she said that was really powerful to me is, if you actually look at people and you do get in their space and you look in their eyes, that it's really hard for you to treat them like an object, that you would automatically sense what they're feeling, and it would encourage more authenticity and vulnerability out of the interaction. So that things like email and Facebook and social media and all of those things while I think they're great, can work against us if we don't work really hard to make sure that we still are in the presence of people, we're reading their cues, that we're engaging with them in a way that they can feel comfortable, that we will accept them and their flaws, so that they won't get that disapproval that people are so much trying to avoid by not being vulnerable.
Right. Well, and I think about what advice we can give to real leaders who in this very moment are in charge of large groups of people and really trying to be at their best. And I think about the fact that at least one place to start is to really adopt vulnerability as a point of view and a mantra around how things are going to be when people come to work in your environment. And I think that leaders need to really set the tone for that's how it's going to go here if you work with me and around me. And then that gives people underneath them a little bit more courage to do the things that they might not otherwise do. So having a mantra that sort of is centered around that to me is a starting point. I wonder what else there is that leaders could do practically speaking.
And I would think that leaders shouldn't go down that slippery slope of just communicating with people through technology and or communicating with them using protocols. That they should begin to remember that people are not just resources, they are people and they are human beings and they have feelings and thoughts, and that it's okay to ask them about those things and include that. And it's okay also to expose yourself. Some of my best leaders helped me to feel more confident in my capabilities when they actually told me about their weaknesses or issues that they had or their scariest moment and how they got through it or what they're not even good at. Those kinds of things helped me to believe that we're all in it together and that I shouldn't have to feel afraid of just being disapproved of because I'm not perfect, because nobody really is.
When I think of, while some people think of vulnerability as a sign of weakness, I in fact think it's the sign of confidence, that you know who you are, you know what you're about, and you're comfortable in your skin, and I feel like that's really the sort of soulful part of work that we need to sort of get back to. And I sometimes feel like we were saying in the beginning, we sort of lost our way, and people need to kind of recenter themselves around something that's really simple, but also really, really impactful in terms of retention and commitment and loyalty. And if you have those kinds of things, people will go miles for you as a leader.
Absolutely.
So it's not that hard, but also it is hard, I guess, but it can go a long way, something so simple.
Well, thanks, Michele. This was a very interesting conversation, and for those of you out there, remember that trusting and lasting relationships depend on people being authentic and vulnerable.